In the heart of Los Angeles, where dreams are made and broken in the blink of an eye, a seemingly ordinary day was unfolding at a run-of-the-mill gas station. Cars whizzed by in a constant stream, the air thick with the hum of engines, and the monotonous sounds of fuel pumps echoed like the soundtrack of a city that never sleeps. But behind the counter, there was something, or rather, someone extraordinary. A young pregnant woman, her face flushed with the effort of another long shift, was putting in hours of hard work to support herself and her unborn child. She smiled weakly as she handed change to a customer, but there was an undeniable weariness in her eyes. And yet, she persevered, one smile at a time, pushing through the exhaustion. Unbeknownst to her, a man of incredible fame and quiet kindness was driving by on this very day, someone who had captured the hearts of millions. Not only for his cinematic achievements but for his reputation as one of the most humble and caring individuals in Hollywood. Keanu Reeves. Keanu wasn't looking for a story. He wasn't in search of a headline or a viral moment. No, he wasn't the type of man to announce his presence. But fate has a funny way of making these moments happen, and on this day, the universe was about to set a course for something no one would expect. Keanu, ever the observant soul, saw the young woman through the windshield of his car, her tired face standing in stark contrast to the shining cars that came and went. Something in her struck a chord in him. As Keanu pulled into the gas station, the loud chatter and clatter of the world seemed to fade. It was as if time had slowed down, the hum of the engines replaced by the ticking of a clock that only he could hear. What was he about to do? Why had he been drawn to this moment? What could a simple act of kindness possibly do to change this woman's life? Little did anyone know, Keanu was about to do something so unexpected that it would leave everyone, including her, utterly shocked. Stay with us as we unfold the story of an extraordinary act of kindness that no one saw coming, and how it would forever change the lives of both a famous actor and a hardworking, pregnant woman who was simply trying to make ends meet. This is not just a story about a celebrity, it's a story about humanity, compassion, and the profound power of a single, selfless gesture. Keep watching, because you won't believe what happens next. The gas station was unusually quiet as Keanu Reeves, driving his classic motorcycle, slowly pulled into one of the pumps. It was just past noon, the sun blazing overhead, casting a golden glow across the pavement. The sounds of car engines, honking horns, and the distant chatter of people seemed to fade the closer he got to the pumps. Keanu was no stranger to the streets of Los Angeles, but today felt different, almost as if the city was holding its breath. His motorcycle came to a gentle stop next to the tired-looking woman behind the counter. She looked no older than 25, but her eyes carried the weight of someone far older. Her hair, once neatly tied in a ponytail, now hung loose and messy, showing signs of a long shift. Keanu could tell by the way she moved carefully, with deliberate steps, that she wasn't just tired from the work. She was pregnant. Very pregnant. Keanu had always been the type of person to notice the smaller details, the ones most people missed in their rush through life. There was a certain aura around this woman, resilience mixed with exhaustion, a quiet strength in the face of adversity. As he got off his motorcycle, he approached the pump, but instead of immediately getting to work, his gaze lingered on her. She seemed so alone. The woman, noticing him walking toward the pump, smiled warmly, though it didn't quite reach her eyes. "How can I help you, sir?" she asked politely, her voice carrying the weary undertones of someone who had said the same line 1,000 times before. Keanu returned her smile, but there was something different about the way he looked at her, a sense of genuine curiosity, as if he saw something in her that others didn't. His eyes held a depth that spoke of understanding. "Just some gas, please," he said softly, his voice calm and measured, almost as if he was speaking to a friend he hadn't seen in years. As the pump began to fill his bike's tank, Keanu continued to watch the woman from the corner of his eye. She shifted her weight from one foot to the other, rubbing her swollen belly. Her hands moved mechanically, wiping down the counter, organizing the cluttered shelves. But there was something about the way she moved that made Keanu's heart ache. She was pushing through the pain and exhaustion with a quiet dignity that he admired. The gas pump clicked off, signaling that the tank was full. Keanu didn't make any move to pay immediately. Instead, he walked toward the counter, where the woman was trying to balance a tray of snacks while keeping a vigilant eye on the customers coming and going. "Are you doing okay?" Keanu asked gently, his voice low and full of concern. The woman looked up, surprised by the question. She blinked, as if processing it for a moment. Most people didn't ask her that. They just assumed she was fine, that she could handle everything. She smiled again, though this time it seemed more genuine. Yeah, just a little tired, she replied, brushing a strand of hair from her face. It's nothing. Just another day. Keanu's gaze softened. He could tell that there was more to the story than she was letting on. But instead of pushing her, he simply nodded. You know, it's okay to take a break, he said, his tone warm, understanding. You don't have to do it all alone. The woman's face flickered for a moment, a mixture of emotions crossing her features. She was clearly taken aback by his words. Most people, especially strangers, didn't offer such empathy, much less advice. I'm fine. Really, she said quickly, as if trying to convince herself more than him. Keanu didn't press the issue. Instead, he quietly reached into his pocket and pulled out his wallet, but not to pay for the gas. He pulled out an envelope, sealed with a thick, cream-colored wax. The envelope had no name or address on it, just the simple mark of someone who wasn't trying to be noticed. Without saying a word, he slid it across the counter toward her. The woman looked down at the envelope, confused. Her eyes widened as she realized what it was. Wait, what's this? She asked, her voice trembling slightly, not out of fear, but out of disbelief. Keanu smiled softly, his expression calm but purposeful. Just a little something to help, he said quietly. I know how hard it can be to balance everything when life throws you a curveball. She hesitated before slowly reaching for the envelope, her fingers trembling as she opened it. Inside was a large sum of money, enough to cover her rent, her bills, and then some. It wasn't a small gesture, it was a lifeline. The woman's eyes went wide, and she gasped, her hand flying to her mouth in shock. I can't take this, she stammered. This is too much. I don't even know you. Keanu's eyes were gentle but firm. You don't have to know me. You just have to know that I see you. And I want to help. There was a long silence between them as she looked at the money, her mind racing with disbelief. She had never encountered anything like this before. She had worked hard, sacrificing so much for herself and her baby, and yet here was a stranger offering something more than she had ever imagined. But Keanu didn't wait for her to respond. Instead, he simply nodded, offering a final reassuring smile. Take care of yourself, he said softly, before turning to leave. As he walked back to his motorcycle, the woman stood frozen behind the counter, her heart racing. She had seen kindness before, but never in this way, never in a way that made her feel seen, valued, and not just as a tired employee, but as a human being. This was a moment she would never forget. And just like that, Keanu Reeves disappeared into the Los Angeles traffic, his act of kindness as quiet as his presence. But it had a ripple effect that would echo far beyond this gas station and touch a life that needed it more than anyone could have realized. But little did she know, that envelope filled with more than just money was a reminder that even in the most ordinary moments, extraordinary things can happen. The days passed by, and life returned to its usual rhythm for both Keanu and the pregnant woman, whose name was Mia. Yet, something had shifted. Mia couldn't stop thinking about the envelope Keanu had given her that day at the gas station. She had put it in a drawer at home, unsure of what to do with it. The money had been overwhelming, almost too much for her to accept, and part of her wanted to return it, to tell him she couldn't accept such a grand gesture from a stranger. But another part of her, the part that had always fought to survive, knew that she couldn't afford to turn it down. The thought of what it could mean for her and her unborn child haunted her daily. That evening, Mia found herself standing outside her apartment building, a slight breeze ruffling her hair as she stared at the envelope in her hand once more. She had never imagined that she would be in a situation where a stranger would show her such kindness, where someone would care enough to help her without expecting anything in return. Yet, here she was, holding something that could change everything. She was on the verge of making a decision that could alter the course of her life. She could take the money and use it to buy her baby the things it needed, pay her overdue rent, and breathe a little easier for the first time in months. Or she could walk away from it all, push aside the temptation, and try to figure out another way to make it work. But every option felt impossibly hard, and every choice carried a heavy weight. At that moment, she felt an unexpected presence behind her, a familiar voice calling her name. Mia, the voice said, soft yet powerful. Mia turned around, and there he was, Keanu Reeves, standing there as if by chance, but she knew better. There were no coincidences in this moment. Keanu, she asked, her voice trembling slightly. Keanu smiled, his eyes kind and calm as ever. I thought I'd find you here. Mia's mind raced. Was he here to check on her? To ask if she had used the money? Was this some kind of test? She didn't know, but she didn't care. Her heart was beating fast in her chest, the weight of everything finally settling in. She had to make her choice. And now, Keanu was here, standing in front of her waiting. "Keanu," she began, but he raised his hand gently, cutting her off. "You don't have to say anything," Keanu said softly. "I didn't do it for a thank you or for any recognition. I did it because I saw you. I saw how hard you've been fighting." Mia blinked, not sure if she had heard him right. "Fighting?" Keanu nodded. "Yeah, we're all fighting, aren't we? For survival, for something better. But I saw how much you were carrying. I saw that you needed help. I just wanted to make sure you didn't have to fight alone." His words struck her like a lightning bolt, and for the first time in a long time, Mia felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes. She had been fighting so hard for so long that she hadn't even realized how heavy the weight had become. She had never allowed herself to admit that she needed help, never let herself feel vulnerable enough to accept it. But here was Keanu, offering her not just money but something deeper, a connection, a moment of understanding that she had never experienced before. "I don't know what to do," Mia whispered, her voice shaky with emotion. "I want to be strong for my baby, but I feel so lost." Keanu took a step closer, his presence grounding her. "It's okay to feel lost. It's okay to not have all the answers. You're doing the best you can, and that's enough." Mia's breath caught in her throat as she looked at Keanu, his calmness radiating a peace she had never known. She had been so focused on trying to do everything on her own, so focused on surviving, that she had forgotten how to live, how to ask for help, how to trust that she didn't have to carry the burden alone. "I don't want to be alone in this," she finally admitted, her voice barely a whisper. "I don't want to do this by myself anymore." Keanu smiled, a small but genuine smile that made Mia feel something she hadn't felt in months: hope. "You don't have to be alone. There's always a way through. You just have to allow yourself to take it." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The air between them was heavy with the weight of the unspoken understanding they shared. Mia's grip on the envelope tightened, but she knew what she needed to do. She had been given a chance not just to survive, but to thrive, to ask for help, to accept kindness. Finally, Mia broke the silence. "Keanu," she said softly, her voice thick with emotion. I want to accept your help. I want to let you help me." Keanu's eyes softened as he placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "You've already done the hardest part," he said quietly. "You've taken the first step. That's all anyone can ask." With that, Mia felt a sense of peace wash over her, the weight she had carried for so long beginning to lift. In that one moment, everything had changed. It wasn't just about the money anymore, it was about understanding, compassion, and the reminder that sometimes, the greatest strength is in allowing others to help you. Keanu smiled again, his eyes warm and reassuring. "You're not alone, Mia. Not anymore." And as they stood together under the fading light of the evening, a new chapter in both of their lives began. Mia's journey wasn't over, but for the first time, she knew she didn't have to walk it alone. And neither did Keanu. He had reminded her that, in the end, we are all part of something bigger than ourselves, a community, a family, and above all, a shared human experience that connects us all. And as Keanu walked away, disappearing once again into the crowded streets of Los Angeles, Mia felt a quiet hope stir inside her, knowing that no matter what came next, she could face it because she had learned that sometimes the greatest strength lies in simply asking for help. In the days that followed, Mia's life began to transform. It wasn't an instant fix, there were still challenges, moments of doubt, and times when the weight of motherhood and the uncertainty of her future would threaten to overwhelm her. But something inside her had shifted, a quiet but profound change that she couldn't quite put into words. The decision she had made that evening, the choice to accept help, to allow herself to be vulnerable, began to resonate in every corner of her life. For the first time in a long time, Mia wasn't just surviving, she was living. She found the strength to reach out to others, to ask for guidance, and even to lean on her family and friends in ways she never had before. The constant fear that had held her in place, that had made her believe she needed to carry everything alone, slowly began to dissipate. One afternoon, as Mia sat in her apartment, cradling her growing belly and sipping a cup of tea, she thought back to that moment with Keanu. The way he had simply been there, without expectation, without demand. He hadn't just given her money, he had given her something far more valuable. He had reminded her that kindness is never about what we have to offer, but about what we are willing to give of ourselves. That day had shown her the profound power of human connection, the quiet strength that comes from offering support when someone needs it most. But more than anything, it had given Mia a new perspective on her own worth. For so long, she had believed she wasn't enough, that her struggles and her burdens were too much to share. She had convinced herself that she had to be perfect, that she had to have everything figured out. But now, she understood that there was no shame in asking for help, no weakness in accepting kindness. In fact, there was strength in embracing both, in knowing that we are not meant to carry the weight of the world on our shoulders alone. As Mia prepared for the arrival of her baby, she began to build a new life, one that was rooted in community, in connection, and in the power of shared humanity. She started to volunteer at a local charity, offering her time and support to other mothers who were struggling just like she had. And each time she helped, she was reminded of the lesson Keanu had taught her, that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness can create the biggest ripples. Keanu, on the other hand, returned to his life in the public eye, his fame continuing to soar. But it was clear that his encounter with Mia had changed him too. He hadn't expected anything in return when he had offered his help. But somehow, it had sparked something inside him, a deeper sense of purpose, a renewed belief in the power of kindness to transform lives. Every time he passed by that gas station, he thought of Mia and the quiet strength she had shown. He thought about how much a simple act of kindness could impact someone's world. And the truth is, it wasn't just about Keanu's generosity or Mia's transformation. It was about the fact that we all have the ability to make a difference. Every day, we are presented with moments where we can choose to be kind, to help someone in need, to offer a listening ear or a helping hand. It doesn't always require grand gestures. Sometimes, it's the smallest acts like listening to someone, offering a smile, or giving what we can that have the most profound impact. Keanu's act of kindness had sparked a chain reaction. Mia's life had been forever altered, and in turn, she was passing on the message to others. Her story was a reminder to us all that no matter where we come from, no matter what struggles we face, we are all capable of helping one another. We are all capable of making the world a better place, one act of kindness at a time. As for Mia, she learned that the key to true strength wasn't in isolation, but in connection. It wasn't about fighting alone, but about embracing the support and love that was all around her. It wasn't about doing it all perfectly, but about finding joy in the imperfections and the moments of grace that life offers. And that's the lesson we can all take from this story. No matter how dark or overwhelming life may seem, there is always light at the end of the tunnel. There is always a way forward, and sometimes it comes from the most unexpected places. Whether it's from a stranger, a friend, or even within ourselves, we all have the power to make a difference. We all have the ability to lift each other up, to offer help, to show kindness, and in doing so, we create a ripple effect that changes everything. So, as you go through your own life, remember Mia and Keanu's story. Remember that you don't have to face the world alone, and that the power of kindness is not just in the giving, but in the receiving. When we open our hearts to others, we make the world a little brighter for everyone. And, in the end, that is the greatest gift of all.